Hello everyone, Benji-Sales here, and welcome to my first ever review on this channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Marvel's Spider-Man by Insomniac Games, which is available exclusively for the PlayStation 4. Now I know for many of you this is a game that you probably beat months ago, but I just recently played it, and I wanted this to be my first ever review because I was really impressed with it. I'm a huge Marvel fan overall. So first, let's talk about the story and a bit of an overview of this game. You play as an established Spidey, which is one thing that I really enjoyed about it. You dive straight in to a Spider-Man that's not, just discovering his powers. We're not going through the storyline that we've seen so many times before. This Spidey is already completely established with his own history in the world, with our characters, many different characters, both villains as well as allies. He has a whole past with them already, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Doesn't have a lot of wasted time of setup. You just jump straight into this plot, which I think is a really good move. We have a wide range of characters in it, both in terms of friendly and unfriendly. I won't spoil any of them here for you that haven't been in trailers already before, because some of them are some genuine surprises. It's a moving story with a lot of emotion. There were some scenes in this that hit me pretty hard that I was not expecting to, especially during the whole last finale of this game. The last hour especially of this game is incredibly strong. Tons of emotion in it, not just sadness or things like that. Both really high highs, really funny moments, but of course as well as some sad moments as well. And I really liked how much emotion they were able to pack into this plot. Great nods towards established lore in it. That's one thing that's really cool, is that not everything is just directly told to you through a long-winded exposition, through finding like collectibles in the world and just one-off lines that people will say to you. You can kind of piece together some of the history that Peter has had with some of these characters, and I thought that was really cool, as well as some fun nod towards longtime Spider-Man fans, towards some of the comics and movies and stuff like that. There's some really cool Easter eggs in it as well. Insomniac Games does an incredible job of creating its own story here, right? It doesn't feel like something that's just a straight rip off of a comic line, or borrows heavily from one of the various movies. No, this feels like its own story, and that's what makes it really exciting. Is yes, you're playing with an established characters that we're all familiar with, but the twists and turns feel genuine. You're kind of on the edge of your seat the whole time in terms of how this is going to unfold, and they do some surprising things with characters in this game. I'll tell you that there's definitely some pretty big surprises throughout it, so that made the story even more fun, is being on the edge of your seat like that the whole time. And the final thing on story really quick is I do appreciate that everyone has convincing motivations, both in terms of the villains that you're going to play against, as well as Peter and his relationships. It all feels genuine. It all feels like a lot of motivation for our characters. And it could be easy in a comic game to be like, hey, here's good guy, here's bad guy. That's all you need to know. But they went out of their way to explain a lot more behind why our characters, do the things that they do. And I really appreciated that. Next up, let's talk about the overall gameplay. The most important thing for this game, let's be honest, was it needed to nail feeling like Spider-Man. This is a Spider-Man game. We all want that fantasy of being able to swing through New York City with those superpowers, and boy, do they nail it. It's excellently done, both in terms of combat as well as swinging through the city. You feel genuinely like you're stepping into Peter Parker's shoes, and I absolutely loved that about it. The open world in general is really fun. Lots of different elevations, which is one thing that's nice, right? It's not just a couple tall buildings here and then like some short buildings. It's like a mixture, right? You've got tall buildings next to medium buildings and short buildings, so that makes it pretty fun to traverse going all through this map. But the one thing I will say is it is a bit lacking in variety. The game takes place in New York City, and they've done an expert job of recreating the feel of it, but it's all just in the city. So, it does get a little bit of a bummer that we can't see some other locations, but for the storyline, it makes sense that that's where it takes place. Peter is usually portrayed in New York City, so totally makes sense. But if you're someone that wants a lot of variety in your map, you're probably not going to get much of that here. Combat, like I touched on shortly, is fun. You definitely feel powerful. Lots of different fun ways that they use the webs. And one thing that's pretty cool is as you unlock new suits throughout the game, they unlock different powers that you can use. And these can range from a big, giant, super web everything at once move to, making a little spider drone that shoots and electrifies enemies. It's really fun mixing and matching the different abilities and figuring out which ones play to your strengths the most. The game has some truly epic moments in terms of gameplay, not just story, but in terms of the things that you're going to be doing. One example, of course, that I'm sure many of you have seen was in the E3 gameplay, where you're halting a helicopter that's kind of crashing through the city, and you're stopping this crane from falling. There's a lot of really cool moments like that in this game that I won't spoil, that really deliver on that superhero fantasy. Good boss fights throughout. There's not just like one or two boss fights at the very end of the game, or one at the beginning and one at the end. Throughout the whole game, you're going to have a various multitude of boss fights against different characters, and I didn't find any of them annoying. I didn't find any of them to be not fun. I thought they were really good boss fights. The one real big miss on this game for me was the instant fail stealth missions. Definitely not a fan of that, I gotta say. It's cool, and at the same time, why these stealth missions are taking place, because I won't spoil it for story reasons, but the reason that you're playing through these stealth missions is very cool. I really liked what was behind the idea. I just didn't necessarily enjoy the execution. I wish that they would have had a way where, if you got spotted, you could kind of get away or something to make this not an instant fail. Because while they're not like super difficult, I definitely failed a couple times across some of these. It was more just like an annoyance. It was just like, man, I don't want to replay through this without having any agency in terms of how I can get past this, right? I just got to make sure I don't get spotted at all, or else it's just instant cut, game over. So that was a bit of a bummer for me. And also the other thing I'll touch on is that side content can feel kind of repetitive. There's a lot of like side missions and stopping crimes and clearing warehouses and things like this. And the good combat still makes it pretty enjoyable to do the majority of them, but it does start to feel a bit repetitive. They are very, very similar. And if you're a completionist like me, in terms of games I really like, I got the platinum on this trophy. And by the end of it, you can kind of be like, man, I would have really enjoyed a little bit more variety here in terms of some of the side content. So, those final 2 points are really my only two big misses for the game. And finally, let's talk about the visuals and the overall presentation of the game. There's a beautiful film-like visual style to this that I really appreciated, both in terms of like the color palette as well as like I feel like the lighting and stuff. They really tried to have that movie-like visual style, and I think they executed on it expertly. Very few jaggies or aliasing throughout the game. Everything looks super clean, and the most impressive thing probably overall in the game to me is the character models, both in terms of the suited characters as well as just characters walking around like MJ and Aunt May. They do a really excellent job on the character models in particular. Brilliant animation work for Spider-Man swinging through the city. It's so impressive. The flips and the tosses and turns that he does, and the jumps and the agility, it all is just brilliantly animated. And I like that there were some unique designs for established characters. So, they definitely look familiar. You'll definitely recognize them when you see them. They do unique twists on some of the way they look, and I like that. The soundtrack and the score is excellent, and it also follows the visual style of being very movie and film-like. Real swelling orchestras as you're swinging through the cities, and it really feels like those Spider-Man movies you've watched with the excellent scores. Voice acting is incredible across the board, especially Peter's voice actor. He's really, really good, but all across the board, for all of the main storyline at least, the voice work was just top notch. Now, the one thing I will give a slight not against for the visual style is that during some of the side content, it definitely overall takes a quality drop. Some of my quest givers would be talking to me and their faces weren't even moving. They were just sitting there, and then eventually like the animation would catch up and then it would start moving out of sync. There's some stuff where just the overall animations looked really weird during it, or the voice work wasn't quite up to notch, up to the high quality as the main game. But this was fairly minor. This is more just the side stuff. I didn't experience anything like that at all during the main game. So, what's my final score? It's going to be a 9 out of 10 for Spider-Man. I think this might be my favorite superhero game ever made. I think it might have edged out Batman Arkham City. I love the Arkham games, but man, Spider-Man is excellent. It's really driven this high by its story, especially, like I said, the final act is something really incredible. First act is good. It's more setting things up, and you're more neighborhood Spider-Man kind of thing. But man, that last act is just purely epic. Congrats to Insomniac Games on creating what I think is a true high quality bar for the comic book game genre. Thanks everyone for watching. I am Benji-Sales. If you like the video, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you want to see me keep doing these reviews. This was my first one ever, so I'm sure there's some flaws in here and it's not going to be perfect. I'm just learning how to do this, so thanks for bearing with me. And if you don't follow me on Twitter already, make sure you do. I am at Benji-Sales. Thanks for watching everyone, and I will see you in the next video.